Ready to start your journey? Whether it's your first workout or you are a seasoned athlete, Endurance for Everyone Coaching wants to work with you. Our coaching team has worked with athletes from beginners to USAT national qualifiers and are comprised of experienced runners, cyclists, and triathletes who have a passion for healthy living and have been where you are. We offer comprehensive coaching programs from weekly support to basic consultation, all designed to help you achieve your goals. If you want to take your performance to the next level, look no further than Endurance for Everyone Coaching. Go to www.teamE4E.com and click on the coaching link or send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And let's get started.
Welcome to this week's Endurance for Everyone podcast.
The following program is for entertainment purposes only. Though the hosts of this show are certified Ironman coaches, their attempts at long-course triathlons and endurance events should not be taken as an endorsement for you to do something stupid too. You should make your own bad decisions, then podcast about it. Now, let's start the show.
Hey, this is John Harris.
And this is Rob Bozovich.
And Endurance is for Everyone, and this is the Endurance for Everyone podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 117 of the Endurance for Everyone podcast. It's going to be a little different today. It's just going to be me, Rob Bozovich. No John, no guests, nothing like that. Long and short, you'll hear me and John talk maybe a little on the Facebook or the group or something later on, but we're going to be recording tonight, but we want to put a little distance between a couple of the interviews, and John and I aren't going to be able to get together any other time, so we just wanted to get something out to you guys. John and I haven't discussed any of the things that I'm going to go over on today's show. I just want to try to give you a little bit of a rundown. If you choose to skip this one, that's fine as well. Kind of going to do a little bit of a rumination on how my training's been going, what's been happening. I've been sick a little bit. Also a little bit about what John and I may have, coming up in some future shows, like what we're thinking, what we have going on, things like that. A little bit of a clearinghouse just to run through just some issues, not necessarily negative issues, just ideas, things in my head, what's been going on in my life and so forth, and go forth from there. So without further ado, we'll jump back into it here. Now, I don't know if you, anyone out there, if you're listening, if you follow along in the Facebook group, or if you follow along to the, I'll call it blog entry. I keep a running, Excel document Word document, where I try to do like a 1 or 2 sentence description of all my runs, whether it's good, whether it's bad, full transparency, just trying to document it. And it's little for me, so that way later on I can come back through and read it. So I know, 3 weeks, 3 months, etc. into the training program, how did I feel? How did this run? What maybe course did I do? Was it an outlier because of a windy day, or wasn't feeling well, or whatever? But also it's to help out anyone else following along, and using myself, and I'll just say Pete, as an example. Pete likes to comment on my stuff and say, hey, you're doing great, you're crushing it, and so forth. And on the opposite end, Pete's when I say physically where I want to be. He's smaller, he's thinner, he's lighter. I'd like to be where he's at, body type wise. He's saying how he'd like to be where I'm at, running speed wise. So that way I just want to say full transparency to share and say like, hey, I had a bad run today, or when I don't like to ever say bad, I had a not perfect. I like to say what it was. Was it the weather related, or was it Rob related? As a prime example here, I had 2 runs this weekend. I had runs every day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday here. But Saturday and Sunday's runs were both 10 milers. So both runs ended up being, I did do them at 10 miles. I did them at about the same pace for the majority of the run. For me, they're supposed to be a tempo, supposed to be anywhere from an 8:30 to a 9:30 minutes average. And, that said is after Saturday's run, I had sent John a couple of texts, and I was just being funny, and I didn't put this one out in the group or anything. And I said, hey, look, somebody actually got photos of me, while I was out running. It looks like my form could use a little bit of help. And I had actually just taken some photos from Google that were pictures of train wrecks, because I thought it was funny. On the Facebook group and on the blog there, I just put kind of a one-sentence description to start it, and that was, I should know better. I woke up Saturday morning at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I had a yogurt and a little bit of coffee and I think one piece of fruit. Well, like I said, that's 7 a.m. I didn't go for my run until 2 p.m. I didn't eat anything else, and I had a little bit of water between those time frames. First 6 miles, I did it out and back. First 6 miles, I did fine, I should say. Maybe it was 5, or I should say. Keeping my pace right where I should be. I'm going through some rolling hills. I was kind of slowing up hills and picking up the speed going down hills. But when I say bonked, I ran out of energy. Come a mile 6.5, 7, you can see my pace starting to slow by several minutes per mile. The last mile, I actually walked it in. Now, that being said, like I said, I'm sharing all of my successes. I'm sharing all my failures. So that way you guys can, play along, and also so that it happens to all of us. I'm by no stretch of imagination an elite or anything like that. Don't think of myself as necessarily a role model or anything. Just trying to put it all out there so everybody knows. So when I'm out there, and when I say I slow to a walk run, it really was most walking, maybe run 50 yards back to walking. It wasn't a scheduled like a 30-30 or a minute. It was just trying to, I'm going to use air quotes, limp it in and get it done. That being said, I still averaged maybe a 14-minute mile, which for me, when I'm supposed to be at an 8:30, that's pretty far off of what plan and what pace is. But for some of you guys out there, you have been working very hard to get to that speed. I just want to, like I said, kind of a clearinghouse, go back to it. There were times years ago that, I'd go from doing a half marathon, be all trained up, completely drop everything, just kind of fall off the face of the earth, not do anything. And then 2 months later, not be able to, do a 16, 18-minute mile, not be able to run more than 100 yards. So I've been there. I know what it's all like, and I know for me personally, it's just easier to kind of stay in shape than it is to get in shape. So I just want to, keep encouraging you guys, keep putting one foot in front of the other, get out there and do it. Also, start really, even if it's nothing else, maybe for yourself, keep a little bit of a training journal, a log, even if you never share it. Maybe it's on your phone, or it's in an email, or you can physically handwrite it out. It's just something to help let you know how you feel one day to the next. As I said, Saturday's run, I just completely fell apart, was tired, but I knew kind of what my issue was, so I put the little tags in my training log, put it out there so I knew what it was. Sunday's run, it was right back to, when I say where it should be. My pacing was correct. I didn't do the same route. I did do a different one, but it ended up, with a difference of 10.01 and 10.02 miles. Elevation was within 6-7 feet of each other, I believe it was. One had like 364 and one had 367. So pretty fairly consistent. So even though it's a different course, it's a fairly close approximation, so I can compare one day to the next, one pacing to the next, and that's something that's important for me whenever I'm trying to really follow a strict training plan, one day, 1 week to the next, and just following through with what I have going on there. Like I said, just knowing what happens one day to the next. Now I'm throwing these numbers out there, paces, and I'm throwing these elevations out there. Reason being, and John and I have talked about it before. We track and I use Training Peaks. It's I forget what it is, and forgive me, but it works out to maybe $10 a month if you pay for a year subscription. But if you pay monthly, it ends up being more. So I've just kind of in 2 Septembers ago, when John was going to start working with me, I paid for a year. Next subscription came up, paid for another year. There are tons of free apps that you can use. Just as case in point, everything is collected on Garmin. Garmin connects to Strava. You can, use all of those. It's just nice to see things, scroll and be able to quickly and easily see one workout, the next. How are they comparing? What are you doing, and so forth. So whatever platform you choose to use, it's just a matter of making sure that you're consistently in it, you're paying attention, so that way how does one compare to compare to the next and the next. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about Training Peaks and what it's telling me, what John is analyzing as well in it, but also then what Rob as the athlete's looking at. So Saturday, I said, was my worst of the two runs, okay? And statistically speaking, 10 miles, 364 feet of elevation change, and it took me an hour 42 in order to get it done. Sunday, the next day, 10 miles, 367, so 3 more feet of elevation change, but it took me an hour 34, almost 8 minutes and some change faster. So I was able to complete it, and I physically felt better, was in a better mental state coming out of that run. It was what I was hoping for. It's what was on the training plan. That being said, is based on my heart rate metrics, 'cause I wear a heart rate every time I'm out there, and based on the stress that the run's putting on my body, the Saturday run was actually less stressful. Once again, a training metric for Training Peaks is RTSS, Running Training Stress Score. And my run to training stress score was an 85 on Saturday's run. It was a 93. Now that accounts because of the most likely, I'm going to say, and John might correct me in a later episode, it's the difference in the speed. Basically, if you go faster, you're going to have a harder running, stress score. It's going to take more of a toll on your body. Now, I wanted to, bring that up because of another important metric, and if you guys are in the book group, you would have seen Saturdays, and I don't know if I completely shared it for Sundays. One of these things these are all my long runs. These are my longer, either they're tagged as either recovery or they're tagged as long, which puts me in that I should be training in a heart rate zone 2. And that being said, is if you look at my charts and my graphs there, the majority of those workouts were completed in zone 2. When I say the majority, you go and look at it, and it's 75 to 85%, And now once again, the anomalies that are the outliers there are coming from when I'm going up a hill, or when I'm coming down a hill, if my heart rate's going up. Now that said, I'm 3 weeks out from the Pittsburgh Marathon at this point. Something I've been doing all along, I should say, and something I try to do for most races, is I try to find courses that are a close approximation to what I'm going to be seeing. Excuse me. Now that when I say it that way, I'm not quite as dedicated, I should say, as my friend Brian. He actually, he's doing these training runs, similar plan. He's following a Hansen's plan. He's doing the beginner one, I believe. But he also he does the, I'm going to say, easier plan and then makes it harder. I'm doing the harder plan, and if I have to make it easier, I do. So we end up with about the same volume, I should say. He is just, much faster than I. I just want to say he's an animal of his own, breeding there. He goes out for his 16-mile run, does the 10-mile warm-up, and then puts 6 miles of when I say some of the hardest, absolute, craziest hills that he can find into it, for the reason being that, as you've heard us say before, Pittsburgh is a fairly flat course, the beginning, some rollers, and then at the 12, 13 mile mark, you end up, if you know Pittsburgh, you end up coming across the bridge, turn right, and you head up towards Pitt University. So that being said, jumping into some statistics, some numbers, then I'll come back to it here. Based on my 2013 running of Pittsburgh has 825 feet of elevation. 200 feet of that come from mile 11.5 to 12.3. That incorporates that running up that hill. So, and then that being said, is that you're up and down on some hills. You get that whole pretty much elevation change back between miles 22 and 23. Actually it's 22.8, 23.9. So that's when you're coming back downhill. Now, like I said, we're 3 weeks out. I try to find a close approximation. Brian, in his training plan, chooses to go out and run really hard, fast, I should say, and then put these really, really big hills much harder. I mean, he's out doing 1,000, 1,200 feet of elevation in 6 miles. And, that's pretty intense for anywhere. But his thought is, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get this work done. That way, when I get to the race is easier. I don't disagree. I think it's a great thing. I just am not as tough as him. I'm not able to go out and do that. So, okay, you've heard me say, and I've said the numbers twice, and I'll say it again. My 2 runs this weekend, 10 miles, so not even half of what the Pittsburgh the marathon distance will be. Each one had about 360. So if you were to double that across a 20 mile course, you're going to end up with just about what total Pittsburgh elevation is going to be. What I have been doing, though, is I've been trying to simulate. In my 10 mile run, at about mile 5 or 6, I've been finding a big hill and trying to target it then. But you've heard me say my plan is I'm not opposed to walking. So typically when you're looking at my mile splits, you'll end up seeing something fairly even. I'll make the numbers up, a 9:19, a 9:22, a 9:13, a 9:30, pretty consistent within about a 10-second variable. And then you'll see an 11 or a 12 or a 14. And what that simulates is when I get to the big hill, I'll run as much until I realize personally that it's kind of a perceived rate of exertion thing. When I feel like I'm running hard but I'm not really going anywhere, I switch over and go to a power walk. Now, that being said, because I'm walking, it's more like power walking, hiking. I'm trying to keep my pace up. I do that by paying attention to 3 things. I look at my watch. I pay attention to my heart rate, because if I'm supposed to be sticking somewhere around a 145, 150, and all of a sudden it spikes up to a 175, 180, I want to get that back under control. It helps my breathing, helps my, processing how much energy I'm using and so forth. In addition, like I said, whenever I drop, if I'm running hard at a 70 or 180 heart rate, but I'm only doing a 10-minute mile, changing from a 10 to a 14, not for an entire mile, but just changing it for that a couple hundred maybe yards or whatever it is, quarter mile, half mile to get to the top of the hill. When I come back down the other side, I'm not at a 9-minute pace anymore. I'm usually around the 7.5, 8. So it ends up averaging out. But this is something where you don't want to try anything new on race day. You want to go out and you want to emulate the course, and you want to see what you can do, so that way what realms you want to stick with. Like I said, it takes some planning. It takes a little bit in advance. But hey, you shouldn't wear any new clothes on race day. You don't want to try a new plan. So, I'd say if you have a big event and something you're planning for, if you're doing it self-coached, you want to go out and you want to take care of it. But this is something where John really steps in and he pays attention to metrics that I don't. We've discussed after his personal best there with the Runners World Festival, the PA to HR or whatever it is, and that's your running pace to your heart rate. John really pays attention to what's happening on some of the real deep back end data. I just go with the simple, when it's the athlete approach. I'm out there and it feels like my heart's pounding out of my chest. I got to slow it down because I can't red line for an additional 10 miles past that. So I'm just learning to breathe, calm myself down, and so forth. Now, switching gears just a little bit and, getting off of these couple of runs because I feel like I've beat them to death a little bit. The round, like I said, I'm 4 weeks out, I should say. 3 weeks from now, but what I started doing last week, what I really wanted to do 2 weeks ago, but as I said, I was sick and, I 100 and some degree fever in bed 5 days straight. No running, no training happened there. So it kind of stinks and it messes with your mind a little bit to lose a week's worth of training. But what it really did do is it gave me the opportunity, as I'm literally laying around with nothing better to do, to start planning, using that downtime to plan some running routes and or was going through my gear, my shorts, my t-shirts, you heard me say when I went to New York, I had pretty much every variable combination. I had a pair of running shorts with underwear built in. I had a pair of running shorts with no underwear built in. I had ankle high socks. I had, knee high socks. I had a pair of pants if I wanted to run with those. I had every combination laid out because I didn't know what I was going to get when I get to New York. Hey, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, what the weather's going to be like in Pittsburgh. Some years it's been, 27 degrees. I mean, literally this week, if I look at the forecast and was to read it off to you, we have, lows way below freezing. This past, this Saturday and Sunday, our high was 35, and that didn't occur until 4 in the afternoon. So it's 26 degrees and steady in the morning. But we're looking out to this Friday. It's going to be 75. So that's something I'm not going to be able to narrow down until I'm at Pittsburgh. But I try to keep my stuff separated in my drawers. Like I keep my running shorts in one drawer, shirts in another, and then my long sleeve, long pants, etc. in a different one. But part of my training logs, part of what I do is I like to know what works well, as in 35 and with no sun, 35 degrees with no sun is a lot different than 35 degrees with sun, and that's a lot different than with wind. So I have a couple pairs of gloves that are windproof. I also have a couple of shirts that, and you can't see, I'm sorry, I'm using hand motions here, but I have shirts almost with like gloves built into them. The sleeves are longer so that way you can actually pull your hands all the way inside. I have some of the running shirts that have the little thumb cut out, so it's almost ends up being like fingerless gloves. Various running jackets, like I said, some are wind breaking, some are for warmth, and you need to know how to layer. So while I was sick, I took time to, inventory what I had, went back through my running notes to know that if, shirt A plus jacket plus gloves is good for this temperature, then, shirt, B is good with no, jacket if it's whatever, and everyone, your temperatures are going to be different, your climates, your racing and everything, but it's good to really sit down maybe every so often, do an inventory of what you have. And I say that now because it's early April. You're going to be able to find a lot of gear coming up for sale. This is something my wife did. Now, granted, she bought some stuff at Ollie's. That's, if you don't know what it is, it's kind of like a discount, overrun, overstock, whatever type of store. And we were in there at one point picking something up, and she picked up just a running, almost like a tech shirt. She really liked it, so we went back and got her several more. I do the same thing, is I'll pick up one or two, and then if a few weeks or a month later I'll realize I really like this shirt, I'll pick it up in multiple colors, not necessarily saying multiple sizes. And I actually, just when I say put them in what I call inventory, I have a shelf where I have a couple pairs of running shoes that are still in the box, couple shirts. That way I can run through things, and that way I always know what I have, I like, it's going to work. And then, like I said, I take that time or opportunity when I'm sick, when I have my downtime, to go through, purge some things, which is hard for me to do. But, if I wore a shirt in the last 2 out of 3 times I've worn it, it's chafed, time to get rid of it. Of course, I don't pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for shirts. Usually it's like $7 to $10. And whenever it's, used up, too smelly, worn out, it's too stained, it's time to start getting rid of it. Shifting gears, I guess, yet again, one thing I just wanted to go through is said, hey, some of the things Rob has going on. This is a digression, and then it'll get back into some training related, but this isn't not. One of the things you've heard John and I talk about, and this goes back 3-4 months now, around Thanksgiving and so forth, I'm using the full suite, I should say, of, I'm using air quotes, bet apps. I'm currently in Step Bet, Diet Bet, and Run Bet. Diet Bet, you guys heard me talk about it. You sign up for it. It tracks, you pay money in, and if you end up losing some weight, you end up, you always get back what you bet. So if you bet in $20, $40, whatever the game is, you win, you guaranteed to get your money back. But you also then get a cut of whoever didn't succeed, so to say. So I signed up 6 months ago, 5 months ago, because it's going to end actually the day of the marathon for a 6-month bet. I've done a couple of 1-month bets. That's neither here nor there, other than saying it's a very good another measure and a tracking and accountability. They have 2 different game setups, a 6-month where you weigh in monthly and you can win monthly and you win at the end as well. They also have the 1-month bets, and it's been a good accountability tracker for me because I literally have skin in the game, so I didn't want to, lose any of my investment, and it keeps me paying attention to what I have. And I really like the timing of it for when I did it, because it carried me through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, through Easter, through some of these major holidays where I would sit down and usually go way off the rails. And actually when you're now thinking, oh, do I want to eat that pumpkin pie or do I want to lose my $40? It's worked for me, may not work for everyone. That being said, I also joined up Step Bet. It's, once again, you bet. They have different length games. The games, some of them are 4 weeks, some of them are 6 weeks, 8 weeks, etc. 2-3 different ways you can track it. You can use your Garmin. I don't know why it didn't give me Garmin as the option when I first signed up. And once you're in a game, in any game I should say, you can't change from Garmin. It uses either your iPhone, Garmin Connect, or Fitbit. But if you start a game with Fitbit, you can't switch 3 weeks into a 4-week game to the other one. You have to wait until the end. But if let's say you're like me, I'm in week 3 on one game, week 4 on one game, and week 2 on another one. It won't let me. It only gives me the option to go, for some reason, Fitbit or Apple. It doesn't let me switch to Garmin if any game is going at that time. So that's something where if you have a preferred tracker, I would make sure that you set it up the way you want. Otherwise, you have to wait until you have no active games, then you could switch. Now, the neat thing with it is you'll be in a game. If you and I are in the same game, it literally goes by which your steps. So you have active days and you have stretch days. An active day is just X steps, and then a stretch day is going to be more than what that is. So when my first game started, I was at like 8,500 for an active and 10,000 for a stretch. My active and my stretch days are now at 12 and 14,000 steps, and that's just based on the volume. My phone's always with me. It goes with me on my runs, which I'll get into that in a little bit. It's with me through the day, so I'm doing my steps, so it's counting everything, and it's going. I just say that because, once again, it's something where it's unique to you, and if you complete everything, you guarantee to get your money back. If as people drop out or fail, you end up getting cuts or portions of theirs. So if that's something that, that interests you and you need that little bit of an extra motivator, then that's something that you might want to consider. I'm not saying I'm gaming the system in any way. I take my steps every single day. I personally just joined it because I figured, hey, I'm going to be running for the next 6 months anyways. Why not join in on this? And, basically if I get my money back, that's the worst case scenario, is you get your money back, if you complete it. But might as well try to make a few shekels on this, and at the end I can use that for a race fee. The third thing, and I had said I was going to go into it there, is RunBet. They previously were only using it they had the indoor or outdoor. If you did an indoor run, you take like a sweaty selfie and you submit it and they verify it. Your outdoor run you'd have to use I think it's Runkeeper or Run Tracker. I don't know. It's one of those free apps, but Maya had some battery issues on with my phone. As such, I never was using it. My phone wouldn't last that long. Well, I have a new battery in my phone now, but they also have updated to where it'll sync with your Garmin. If you use a Garmin, it'll go through Garmin Connect. So if you're using a Polar or a TomTom or any of those other brands, you're out of luck as far as that goes. But if you do have a Garmin device and it's something, it might be something you want to look at. Different games, some of them are progressive, so you start with a half a mile run and then you increase from there. One of the ones I'm in is 4 days a week of running a half hour a day. Minimum, they put minimums when I say it that way, but they're fairly generous. Most of them are a 16 to 18 minute mile average. Most of you guys out there are probably gonna be able to walk that pace. It is called RunBet, but it's just something. It's just more about the consistency in getting out there. So you may not be able to run a 10-minute mile for 40 minutes straight and get 4 miles in, or a half hour, or whatever it is, but you might be able to run a 10-minute mile for a half a mile and then walk a 19, and it'll keep your average there. I just wanted to share those because there are things that have helped keep me, I don't want to say motivated, because the race, the training, and the running that I'm doing keeps me motivated. These are just little asides that I like to interject to help keep things interesting. Also, for me, like I said, it's kind of like doubling down. I want to get faster. That's why I'm doing the harder training. I'm already out there running, so why would I not want to join the running and the stepping, because I'm already doing it, so to say. And I said I always have my phone with me. I know some people they don't like to run with anything. They run naked, no electronics, or I don't take my phone with me. My phone's always with me. Like I said, it's tracking my runs. My watch is tracking my runs, but it's tracking my steps, and it's doing that type of thing. Also, I like to listen to stuff, I'll say, when I'm out running. As of late, it's been more music, but generally speaking, it has been podcast. It's my time. I get out there and I listen to a lot of podcasts. I've been caught up on most of all of my podcasts, and as such, I've been switching over to my music, which is also, like I said, hey, I'm 3 weeks out from Pittsburgh, but this past week I've really been fine-tuning, I should say. I have a running playlist, and everyone, you may just like to listen to one album continuous. You may like to listen to a whole bunch of stuff. You may only have your upbeat running music on your phone, or you might have a little bit of everything. Because I personally have I've made several different running playlists through the years, and I continue to curate that. And what I try to do is, in using Pittsburgh as the example, the first 3 miles is fairly congested, and then it starts to spread out. I've done the course. I know the profile. I kind of know what's going on, where some crowd support is going to be, where it's not. And I try to target my running playlist to mimic the course. So the first few miles, it sounds odd to say it, but I actually have some slower music kind of like building into it because I'm warming up to it. So the first 15 minutes or so, figuring a 2 to 3 minute song, my first I'm going to say 5-6 songs have they're fun, they're more upbeat. I'm saying upbeat. They're not a higher tempo song, but there's something that kind of get me into it. But it's not thrash metal that's going to have me out there just running crazy. Okay. Then what I try to do is for a good chunk of maybe a half hour, 40 minutes, So maybe we're going to call that miles 4 through mile 10. I do start to curate it a little bit more. I get into a little bit heavier stuff. When I say heavy, it's not the heaviest stuff out there, but when I say it's the stuff that I've found gets me fired up, geared up to get going. I have some, everything in that realm from the from Buck Cherry to Kiss. And this may work for you guys. Walk the Moon. If that's that song, it's kind of upbeat and it's that shut up and dance with me. I also have Walk Away, which is the Natus. If you ever watched the show Pinks, where they drag race and you lose your car, basically. That gets me kind of pumped up. But that's just when I say works for me, it gets me into a better mind state. And then when I say I have one running list, but I have two different ways that it goes, I actually then put in, and personally I like, this works for me, I'm going to be in Pittsburgh. I like the Clarks. The Clarks are a Pittsburgh band. So a couple years ago I had done that, and I put their live album in. And once again, I put the live recording versus the a studio recording of the songs, because for me it's just a certain energy that continues to build as their show goes on. And I know at that point in the Pittsburgh race, that's when I'm going to be running through up the hill, through Pitt, through places like that where there's kind of less crowd support. So that is my little trick. It helps me get, I don't know if I want to say out of my head or farther into it. You know what I mean? I just kind of zone out and just go into that. That is this one. Then, and most recently, and this is it's a newer album as well. After the Clarks, I go into Judas Priest, their new metal album, Firepower, and it's, once again, I have the entire album. So half or over half my running list is just these two. One's, like I said, the live cut of their show. The other one is a studio recording from a metal band, but it's it flows cohesively, just one to the next to the next to the next. So it just kind of carries me through 40 minutes to an hour of running without even really thinking about it. Now I'm going to flip the switch and come way back, and you're going to sit here and say, like, Rob, how do you go from listening to, some of my songs are country, to the Clarks, to to heavy metal. When I say my music collection is just as eclectic as my podcasts, some podcasts I don't listen to while I'm running. I listen to a lot, if you've heard me say, the Entrepreneur on Fire, and that I listen to it when I'm driving, sometimes when I'm running, like a recovery run, but listening to just straight up interview and people talking and so forth, it sometimes gets hard to hear through some of the wind, if it's something you're paying attention to. But the podcasts that I do listen to while running, like I said, so that's what I've been listening to for the majority of my training. Marathon Training Academy. I listen to Vinny Tortorich's podcast. I listen to, Pete's podcast, Fat Man Chronicles. How was your run today? And you can see that most of these are going to be health and fitness, and I feel good listening to health and fitness while I'm out doing health and fitness. Lately, I've actually been listening to, and I should say it this way, I binged it since New York. I've been listening to the Heavy Metal Hangover podcast. It's actually my friend Jay and one of his band members. I met up with Jay in New York. We had some drinks and dinner, and I heard about his show. And, when I say I'm not a heavy metal guy, you listen to the show. It's pretty good, actually. If you haven't listened, when I say pretty good, I really like it. But they get into talking about, bands, anywhere from the inception of, I should say, heavy metal through current, some new stuff, names and songs and albums and things that John would be able to tell you a whole heck of a lot about, that I don't get as into the details. I just kind of listen and say, hey, do I like this, and so forth. And once again, what works for me. It gets me out of my headspace because this is something that is unfamiliar to me. I don't really know the bands they're talking about. I don't know, why 1986 is the best year for heavy metal and so forth. But once again, it gets me out of my element. It's something enough to listen to that it keeps my mind off of what I'm doing, just running. It's interesting enough though that I can retain a little bit, and then it broadens my horizons a little bit to look at some other things. Like, hey, this is new. Hey, that being said, is some of you may be in a different case. I was kind of hoping this training cycle I was going to get to do some more running with people, so I haven't. Maybe later in the summer or for my Chicago training routine, I will have the opportunity to do some more training with people. It's central Pennsylvania, and it's winter into early spring, which we haven't really seen spring yet, but we've had a lot of darkness. We haven't had early on in my training it was treadmill because of all the ice, and it was dark out, and now it's once again it's cold, and I haven't been able to meet up with anybody. But I just wanted to tell you all when I say tips, tricks, and ideas, what's been going on with me through my training. It might be much different if you have the training group or the group runs, and I've only been talking running, but the same thing for rides and swims and so forth. It's going to be different if you have that. You see John post his photo every Wednesdays or swims and whatever Saturdays or rides. I don't have that. Have not had that availability, I should say, up here. Also, it's different with it's a young family. So some I've been able to take my son on. Some I try to work in around work schedule. And right now I'm looking at 2-3 things. As I'm recording this, it's still before noon on Monday. I need to go get my 8-mile run in, and I'm looking at when am I going to start, because the snow, yes, once again, snow, April 9th, and they're predicting snow at 2 p.m., and that's going to carry all the way through midnight, so hey, do I want to bundle up and go run on slushy roads and get my shoes and my gear all wet, or do I want to try to go out and run it now? And once again, the closer I get to race day, the closer I want to get to race approximation. What am I going to do? I'm hoping that the first weekend of May we're not going to have snow in Pittsburgh, but I've done a lot of running in snow, so at this point I'm trying to find clear, dry streets and get out there and do it. And not many people are going to be able to take off at 1:30 on a Monday afternoon in order to go for a run. Summertime might be a little different. If you have the availability to go with people, I'd always rather run with somebody else than run by myself. But the alternative is if I not doing any workout, and that's not a possibility for me. So not sure if you guys found any or all of this interesting, or certainly not exciting. I don't think you guys are throwing parties right now saying, oh, that was the greatest thing ever. I just wanted to go through and give you a little bit of what's on my mind, what's been what been working for me, what hasn't been working for me, and I don't need to bore you guys with every single run and every single statistic, just trying to give you some broad strokes there with that. The only other thing, like I said, I wanted to get into a little bit of like what's upcoming and so forth, and that is, don't expect me to drop any like major knowledge, like we have this interview and this one, or we're changing this and we're doing that. You'd heard over the last few shows, if you listen, John and I, we had done a couple of back-to-back recordings. Like we literally recorded Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we'd release those over a certain time frame. Coming up here soon, as I said, we have an interview tonight, and I don't think I said who it was with earlier. Anyways, until it's in the can, we don't like to discuss that. But once that interview is done, we'll post it or tell you who it's going to be on Facebook. We might post that one next week or the following. I'm not 100% sure what we'll end up doing there. But we're not trying to make this show interview. We want to keep it a little blend of everything, and this is just, once again, Rob off the cuff, not really discussed with John, but we want to continue to talk, have a show dedicated to our training, what's going on and so forth, and then maybe the next show we're going to talk about some articles and so forth. John has sent me some recently, and if you're in the group, you've seen some of the discussion, you know what I mean? I'm not going to say politics, but some of the, is this good or is this bad, or what would you consider this as far as it goes into training wise, and I'll just say it that way if you've seen the article, and if you haven't, you'll just expect to hear that, coming up in a show here soon. Then, like I said, we'll probably drop the interview here that we do tonight, either next week or the following. And then we're probably going to do a recap, not necessarily a recap, but at that point it'll be late April, and it'll be putting us into the week before the Pittsburgh Marathon. Probably do a little wrap up there following the Pittsburgh Marathon. If you guys liked what I did with New York, I might do something similar. You know what I mean? I'd expect the clips to be, I don't want to say longer, because I try to take, like you heard, about the 10 to 20 second clip per mile. Well, the New York was a half marathon. Pittsburgh's a full. So, it's going to be twice as many clips. And, I do know there's going to be some members of the group down there. So if we meet up and maybe, get some of that stuff going. So that'll be, early May, that one would come out. And ultimately, if there's anything that you guys like, if there's anything you want us to do more of or you want us to do less of, let us know. You can send me an email, rob at enduranceforeveryone.com. You can send John at enduranceforeveryone.com. I think he has like teamE4E or something as well. I'm not sure which one was the other live email address he has, but it redirects. You can get him on Twitter. I'm out there, although I don't do anything, haven't looked at it in a long time. You can get us, on the Facebook group. Send it as just a post, or if you want to private message us, hey, if it's hey guys, read this article and discuss it, or I have some questions regarding some upcoming like a race or a training, anything you have, we'll give you our best answer, or do a little bit of research. John is once again certified coach. I'm not. I'm just a athlete putting my perspective in it, but 10 years now or so been doing research, reading the books, and paying attention. I know what works for me, and I'm not saying that it's going to work for you, nor that you have to do it my way, but if I can say, hey, this is what I've done, it's worth you maybe giving it a try, and if it helps you out, you know what I mean? If it helps keep you safe, it helps keep you working out. If it, I'm not saying it's going to cut a marathon time in half, or it's going to do anything miraculous, but if we can help keep you guys healthy and keep you out there, and also with keep you entertained and giving you guys what you want, that's what we're shooting for here. So drop us a line. Please, I'll go ahead and throw the call to action back out there. Please, if you haven't, go out, on whatever device you're listening to, whether it's the, Apple app, or if it's Stitcher or Podbean or wherever, or YouTube, you're listening to it. Go ahead and, leave us a rating and a review, just a couple lines. It really does help push it up there so more people can find the show. So that way more people can listen and or share in the community. We do want, once again, more people in the Facebook page, but we want the right people in the Facebook page as well. Don't necessarily need to go blanket adding every single person. We want it to stay active, but we also want it to be like-minded, supportive people to go along, that want to listen, that want to, get a little bit more into something, whether it's running, whether it's cycling, whether it's swimming, and offer their support and share their experiences out there. So just want to thank you all for listening to this episode. And if you have anything else you need, just reach out to us and we'll go ahead and take care of it. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you have comments or questions for the show, send an email to teamE4E at enduranceforeveryone.com. And remember, swim calm, bike strong, and run steady.